Thank you for joining us this week on The Tongue with Dr. Myke. I'm so glad you're back with us again. Make sure to visit our website, thetonguespeakslife.com. Remember, that's the center for everything associated with our missions. You can access our recent podcasts from there. You can, if you want that full catalog of podcasts, just head over anywhere you get your podcast from, anywhere you listen to it, like Apple or Spotify. Be on the lookout for Legionnaire. I keep talking about Legionnaire. Legionnaire is based on Romans 8:17, heirs of God and co-heirs with Christ. You're going to see that soon. It's a collaboration with churches from across the globe working together with the Tongue with Dr. Myke. A lot of moving parts on it. It's taken a long time, but it is coming together. Remember, thetonguespeakslife.com. You can click on there. You read anything about our outreach programs, our Bibles for believers. If you have anything you want to tell us, message, you can donate right there, or you can go to our legionarms.shop. You can get a free Bible, put it in your cart there. We have some merchandise. The Bibles are free. That's a blessing from our ministry. And if you just want to donate to anything that we have going on, you can click it right there. Cure International is there. They're doing great things with kids across the world. Man, if you don't know about Cure, and the impact they have on not just the kids, but the families, I encourage you always. I'm always going to include them. Check out Cure. If you're on Facebook, make sure you're checking out JB and his crew over at Psalm 346. Man, they're doing great things. So be on the lookout for that. And they definitely still need volunteers. There's a volunteer form online. Just head over there and check it out. And I'm going a little fast today. There's so much I want to get to. I've been out for a little bit. Summertime, a lot of things going on here. Vacations are going on. Work changes. There's lots to go. Lots of things to do. It's been pretty hectic here, but we are jumping right back into this. And we're getting... Man, it's full speed ahead here. I don't even know how we're keeping up, but it's been a while for me to get this out to you. I know we're finishing up that 4-week mini Bible study on faith. We're going to wrap that up today. God bless you wherever you're listening to this. And like I said, we are in front of literally millions of eyes, sets of eyes every day. We post on so many groups every day. Inspirational things to check out. If you're on Facebook, The Tongue with Dr. Myke, go on there. Daily, there's some sort of thing that I'll put out there. Thank you, God, for the wide reach this program's having. And we continue to make an impact. So reach out to me if you have something to talk to me about. You have questions. I like all the feedback. All right. Today's topic is something to look out for. Well, before I jump into that, I do want to, this is going to begin, like I said, our fourth of our 4-week course on faith. Then we're going to discuss something that's on the horizon that you may not know that's happening. I want to touch a little bit on some things that I did learn this week. And I briefly want to touch on Daniel and his dream and the interpretation and where we're at with that, and throw some perspective out there. All right, here we go. Right. So let's start with the 4-week mini Bible study on faith. And if you recall, if you missed any of these, just jump back on the podcast from before and catch up. Right. Week 1, we did focus on today. There's some interesting Bible verses wrapped up with that. Week 2, on our second session, we did focusing on the truth. I know we did some work in Psalms there. Check that one out for sure. And week 3, we talked about God wanting commitment. We were still at Psalm 37. We talked about that a lot. So God wants commitment. And today we're going to wrap up this course on faith. And it's going to be, the topic of this is faith is equal to grace. And this is based on Matthew 14:25 through 33. And I'm going to, if you can turn there and read with me, it says, "And in the 4th watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, "It's a ghost." And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." And Peter answered him, "Lord, if it's you, command me to come to you on the water." He said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid. And beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. And those in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." You know, there's so many topics and series we can do just on that scene alone. And if you do watch The Chosen, which I talk about often, that scene, I believe that was the end of season 3. It was that was pretty cool. But there is so much about focusing on Jesus and not looking at the storm. And we've talked about that on Pillars of Heaven. We've talked about that here on The Tongue with Dr. Myke. There is so much that is so deep. As we talk about water, but there's so much we could do about on just that, Matthew 14. But when we read the Bible, sometimes we overlook the simple things, right? There's answers to every single question that we have. So often we wonder, what does it take to receive the favor and the grace that Jesus gave to those who were healed in the Bible, right? And if you look closely, you're going to see that the main ingredient to receiving God's grace and favor is to have faith, right? God's grace is always there for us. We need to take hold of that and claim it in our life. But the only way we can do that is to humble ourselves before him and accept it by faith. Through our humility, we're able to accept whatever the outcome may be. And we're able to let go of our pride and our control. When we have faith, we continue to walk in his grace, which allows us to do things we were unable to do, that you can only do through him. Through our humility and his grace, God is glorified and we are made smaller. But that's okay, because finally you're walking with him and experiencing life like you've never experienced that before. When you're walking in faith and obedience to him, you can be confident that whatever you do is going to be covered in his grace and favor. If you're going to receive his grace, or if you're going to learn to walk in it and be covered in God's favor, then you need to have faith and let go of our fear. But that's not so easy. We talked about that so many times, right? Letting go of your fear. It was faith that allowed Peter to walk on the water, and it was fear that brought him down. It wasn't by Peter's ability that he was able to walk on water, but through God's grace. Peter removed himself from God's grace and he began to fear. When we walk in fear, we're not walking in his grace. If we choose our desires and places them, or our desires and whatever we want, and we place that before God, we're taking advantage of that grace. God's grace is a beautiful thing, and it's all around us, right? What are you going to do with that grace? Are you going to walk in it? Are you going to turn your back on it? Or are you going to take it for granted? If you're going to walk in and under his grace and faith, then you need to let go of our fear, and you have to trust God in who he says he is. There's so many stories I want to share right now, but I'm going to try and stay focused because there's so much we can talk about with this. And, we've talked about this before, but if you're going to apply this to your life, ask yourself, what fears are holding you back from walking in faith? And you can journal this, you can write it down, list 3 things where you have seen God's grace active or where you've seen God's grace present in your life. And then you should list 3 reasons why you can trust God, right? You can even list 3 reasons why you don't trust God. And then focus on, are these things true? Do you believe that the healing power of Jesus can be found in the world today? Why or why not? What do you believe God can do in your life if you had faith like a mustard seed? Journaling is very therapeutic. I know people, I made fun of people for doing it for a long time. But it helps a lot. So for this week, as we wrap up week 4 and we talk about faith, I want you to focus on Hebrews 11:6 and read that, ponder it. If you are one of the people that reach out to me and talk to me and send me questions, Hebrews 11:6, that's what we're doing. So it's important to have God's faith. And like I said, now that we're talking about him walking on the water, I think the next couple series we're going to focus in on, what it means to focus on the storm instead of focusing on God. I'm guilty of it at times. We all are. It's difficult. It's easy to look around you and see things overwhelming that you can't control. But we'll get to that. Remember, Hebrews 11:6. And, okay, moving right along. Here we go. So that wraps up faith. We're going to do another series pretty soon on a couple other topics that people have asked about. So I'm not going to spoil the surprise. But I did find out something this week. And, that famous saying and that quote that everyone's saying now, I was today years old when I heard about this. Well, I was today years old on Tuesday when I heard about the Queen James Bible. So we all know the King James Bible. I don't know how many of you have heard about the Queen James Bible, but if you haven't heard about it, it is a Bible out there that some people refer to it as the gay Bible. It's just, to me, it's another example of people not fabricating, but altering God's word and the message there to fit their lifestyle, to make them feel okay in what they're doing. And if something's offensive in there, then we're just going to take it out and change it. I had no idea this existed. It was new to me. I thought it was a joke. It's not a joke. It's a very real thing. And it's a sign of where we are in society today and where we are with the prophetic calendar and where we are in the end times. So if you haven't heard about the Queen James Bible, it's out there, and know that it's there, and know that there's going to be a lot more things changed in Scripture as we go forward into these last days. A lot of people wrote to me about the world events going on in Paris, and we talk about the Last Supper and the blackout there and the Christians gathering. It's a huge topic. There's the people that are writing to me have there are so many opinions and so many things about it. I mean, people have asked me what I think about it. What a disgrace. And I did hear somebody say that, the Christians that are offended, we should be offended. If there's no other religion that you can make fun of in this manner and expect it to be okay. But for us, they're making fun of our religion here. And that in itself should tell you that how true it is. But, it's funny to me that you should be offended, because this is the way it is now, but you should be offended, but then you should not be offended because the world we live in, and this is going to get worse, and who's in charge of this earthly realm, and you shouldn't be surprised by it. You should be offended. You shouldn't be surprised. I think I'm going to end it on that. The people that did write to me, I'll write back to you singly, and if you want to have a discussion and take it further, I will. But I'll answer you privately, and we'll take it from there. So if you don't know what happened, check it out, Google it, and reach out to me. Okay, so I want to talk about the UN and what's going on in less than 60 days, and I'm pretty sure that not a lot of people know about it. The UN is going to sign the Pact of the Future in less than 60 days. And that's going to happen in September of this year. the United Nations 79th General Assembly will host the highly anticipated Summit of the Future, where the nations are going to sign. They're going to sign this Pact of the Future, and this Pact of the Future represents a major step towards the creation of a world government. If you know your history, you know that the United Nations. We'll talk about that in a second, but this is the 79th session of the UN General Assembly, and it's a lot of people, the general public especially, are dangerously unaware of the plans for the Summit of the Future. And, it's at the summit where member states are expected to declare a planetary emergency as part of their so-called Pact of the Future. Right. So, this is an annual meeting, but this year's gathering is unique because in addition to the Summit of the Future, which takes place in New York City this September, the 22nd to 23rd, the summit's been making, since 2022, repeated calls to shift financial resources to rapidly complete the Agenda 2030 goals set by the UN way back in 2015. So if I'm speaking and this doesn't make any sense to you, or you don't know anything, I sound like I'm coming way out of left field. You have to know that Agenda 2030, I want you to Google that and do your homework on that and find it's called the Great Reset. And, there has been a call to shift the financial resources. You see it happening in a lot of the economies now. There was goals set for this 2030 back in 2015. But the things that are happening now, coming up in September, this Summit of the Future, is to forge a new global consensus on getting ourselves ready for a future that is, as they quote, rife with risks, but also with opportunity, right? So the Summit of the Future, if you go to the website there, it says that the outcome of the Pact of the Future is going to be a world with an international system. That it's better prepared to manage the challenges that we face now. So this Pact of the Future is likely to be another piece of the shift towards the world governed by politicians, right? So let's put it that way. So a lot of people are calling this the UN 2.0. The very nature of how nation states are making decisions, everything that's going to go on regarding the future of this planet, it's going to be, there's going to be likely a vote to radically alter the UN itself. And that's what I see. And they're going to try to sign this global digital compact at this summit. And that is the stated purpose of that is to establish an inclusive global framework, which is what they're saying essential for action required to overcome digital data and innovative divides, right? It's a big they're saying it's for your good. It's going to help advance an open, a free, a secure, a human-centered digital future for all while helping complete whatever their sustainable developmental goals are, right? So this is creeping into independent media space, and the public at large is still completely unaware of this meeting and the implications of the agreements that are being discussed, right? The planetary emergency is, this is a zero draft version of the Pact for the Future, and it's being called an emergency platform, which is going to impact it would be activated in the event of such a shock that has an impact on multiple regions of the world. And according to the UN, it requires a coherent or coordinated multi-dimensional response, right? So what does all that crap mean, right? They're looking to plan how to handle a global planetary emergency, which will shock everybody and impact every region of the world. So what do we know as Christians? What event could impact multiple regions of the world all at once? with such a shock that everybody's going to be affected and nobody's going to know where to turn and everything's going to be in chaos. What do we know is coming up? If you read your Bible, you know that however they explain the rapture and however they, it's aliens or vapored or whatever, whatever they say when Christ comes back and gathers his church, you can see now this Pact of the Future is already anticipating how to handle such a dramatic event without saying that's the event, right? So this draft is it's claiming that it's convening on an emergency platform, right? So it's saying it's an emergency and we have to know how to handle a crisis such as this, but it's important, and they're going to wrap the Climate Commission into it because they've already released reports about, man, the more I talk about this, the more I sound like one of those conspiracy wackos that I used to think were crazy, but this isn't a conspiracy. This is happening. Just check it out. The summit's coming up in December, and next year we're going to talk about what they're looking at for next year. But this is, what do you do should a planetary emergency arise? Right? What do you do? What do you do when a crisis poses a grave risk to global stability and security? Right? To be reinforced by all the bodies and agencies of the UN system. Sorry, I had to take a drink there. So they're going to talk about emergency platform, planetary emergency, and climate change, of course. I want you to do some homework. Look at the Club of Rome. If you've ever heard of the Club of Rome, they've been asking for a planetary emergency since 2019. They want a plan. They want this in place. So if there's an urgent need, half of that they want to, you'll get to climate change. You'll get to, hey, we have to cut greenhouse gas emissions by 2030, and especially carbon. Big shocker there, But what they're doing is they're searching for a new enemy to unite them. That's what they're doing. They want to come up with an idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortage, famine, everything like that is going to be wrapped into how they're going to handle it, right? What are the demands of the people going to be? What are the causes? What are the dangers caused by human intervention? There's a theory there that they say all the dangers are caused by human intervention, and it's only through changed attitudes and behavior that they can be overcome. And the real enemy, therefore, is humanity itself. So how do you combat that? Oh, well, you have AI step in, and you have, you are being told what to do because it's in the greater good. It's in your best interest. So this Summit of the Future, this is just a step. It's a big step. It's an important step to close the gaps and to make the UN more effective, I would say, in addressing the challenges that are coming, right? And I know after this first one, the Second World Summit for Social Development is set in 2025, and it's their agenda there is sustainable development. And if you think I'm one of those wackos, just Google this stuff, man. This is stuff going on that you're probably not aware of, because we're watching right now. What are we doing? Watching the Olympics, and Snoop Dogg's at the Olympics, and everyone's looking at what pin he has, and it's. And then there's more controversy of the male and the female boxing, and everybody's been writing me about that also. And I'll tell you, so this plan, this meeting is going to be September 22nd, and slated on there is the first steps in how to handle a global crisis. And, in 2025, as that meets in Copenhagen, the agenda for sustainable development. So one thing's clear: the Summit of the Future, the Pact for the Future, the declaration of a planetary emergency, it needs more attention, right? And people need to know, when things go on, people always look back and the hindsight there, and everyone wishes they paid more attention before it became a problem. But we know it's going to become a problem. And hopefully it becomes a problem after Christ returns and we're out of here, right? So, but how do you explain that to the people that are left? It's going to be explained, and people are going to buy it, and they're going to buy into it, and it's going to sound reasonable. Sorry, and people are going to accept it and say, "Yeah, that makes sense," and move on. And if you're knee deep into end time prophecy, the acceleration at that point, the pedal goes down. And a lot of people, I want to thank them for bringing to my attention the things across the world that are being implemented already. And it's, the implants in your hand and the stores that are already on lockdown that you can't access unless you have that implant in your hand to go into the store, and there's no cash, there's no anything, everything's, you wave your hand, everything's paid for. Everybody's being desensitized to that. Like, it's a big shock at first, and the more it's around, you'll see it's going to become more common. And it becomes scary for the people that are going to be left here, and when without that mark, you can't buy and you can't sell, and it's going to become real. But anyway, so without sounding like a conspiracy wacko, check out Pact for the Future, the Summit of the Future. It's happening this September in New York, and 2025 it's going to be in Copenhagen, the Second World Summit for Social Development. And if you're just tuning in, that is the plans for what they do, an inclusive global framework to overcome any divide across the globe after something disastrous happens that affects every country. So keep an eye on that. Okay, so let's jump into Daniel's dream. If you haven't read the book of Daniel, man, that's awesome. What a great life. I know when my PhD, my final paper in my theology tied Daniel to Revelation, and my dissertation was knee deep in all of this. And I just want to talk about the interpretation of the iron and the clay feet, and what that reveals about our world today. And if you don't remember, it wasn't Daniel's dream exactly. The vision of a statue with the feet of iron and clay was in King Nebuchadnezzar's dream, and he wouldn't tell anyone what he'd seen. So he didn't tell anybody. He demanded to know what the dream meant, though. Not known for his reasonableness or goodwill, Nebuchadnezzar summoned the sages to not only interpret it, but also to tell him what the dream was, right? He gave them no clues. And this is all, if you're not familiar, this is 600 years BC, right? But it seems that message behind that statue with the feet of iron and clay is very pertinent right now, right? So let's go back. The Jewish prophet Daniel is the only one among all the wise men and the mystics of the empire who was able to meet the challenge, and he did so by the power of God, right? the puzzling omen that Daniel was able to identify and unravel is found in Daniel 2, verses 31 to 33. And it says, "You saw, O king, and behold, a great image. This image, mighty and of exceeding brightness, stood before you, and its appearance was frightening. The head of this image was of fine gold, its chest and arms of silver, its middle and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay." All right, so that's the part I want to focus on, the feet of iron and clay, and how that's relevant now. So according to Daniel, as God revealed it to him, the golden head represented the king himself, Nebuchadnezzar, and his spectacular Babylonian empire. Right? Later would come other subsequent empires representing the decreasing value until it came to the last empire, a mix of iron and clay, which all would ultimately be smashed to smithereens by this giant rock. Right, so I want to talk particularly about the feet of iron and clay because it seems to represent what we're living in now, right? So let's go back. This is what Daniel said about it. And it says, "And as you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, it shall be a divided kingdom. But some of the firmness of iron shall be in it, just as you saw iron mixed with soft clay. And as the toes of the feet were partly iron and partly clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly brittle." So, as you saw the iron mixed with soft clay, so they will mix with one another in marriage, but they will not hold together, just as iron doesn't mix with clay. That's the part we want to focus on, right? So Daniel 2:41 starts out this way, "And in the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed, nor shall the kingdom be left to another people. It shall break in pieces all these kingdoms and bring them to an end, and it shall stand forever. Just as you saw that a stone was cut from a mountain by no human hand, and that it broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold. A great God has made known to the king what shall be after this. The dream is certain and its interpretation sure." Okay, so there are differing interpretations of which empires are represented here, right? But if Babylon was the head, then the other empires like that were most likely the Medes, the Persians, the Greek, and the Roman. Right? So could it be that the feet of iron and clay might be this current Islamic colonialism that has taken up so much ground all of a sudden with its uneasy alliance with that Marxist humanism that's overrunning the West right now? All right, so let's break that down, what I just said. The Islamic East and the woke West. That's what we're talking about. Right, so a lot of people are bewildered as to why the people with the blue hair and the pronouns in their bios, why they have such a bizarre affection for Hamas. How could that community be so fond of groups that would not hesitate to throw them off buildings or drag them around behind their motorcycles for their sexual activities, right? Why do feminists seem to be supporting rapists? And these people with the balaclavas, the students who call themselves the anti-fascists, why do they cheer on violent dictatorships? So what in the world do these two groups, one excessively liberal and the other extremely authoritarian, what do they have to do with each other? By now, it should be more obvious that the liberalism of humanistic woke ideology is actually way more authoritarian than that naive people might once have assumed, right? So you step out of line and the punishment's severe and irrevocable. It's the most intolerable parody of tolerance imaginable. You know, refusing to acknowledge the difference between men and women, that woke crowd has proven determined to destroy the nuclear family and their defiance against God's created order. They may seem to be campaigning for kindness or equality and justice, but that's the Antichrist spirit, right? It's the very opposite of God's kingdom, parading as if it were light. Humanism without God, based on the assumption that all humans are basically good, has eroded people's ability to know right from wrong, or truth from lies, or darkness from light. And radical Islam, seeming to be entirely in the opposite corner. At least they know what a woman is, right? As some people have said. In general, Islamism veers towards creating a gulf between men and women, often expressed in their, misogynistic practices like the forced modesty of their headgear, and even banning women from being out or being anywhere without permission in some places. So how in the world would these two become partners? It's an ungodly alliance of iron and clay. Ironically, the worldly humanism in which anything goes has given permission and created fertile ground for Islamic fundamentalism to flourish, right? Especially in the West. But these two domineering empires of iron and clay, Mohammed or Marx, they don't mix at all. I mean, they do. They have a couple things in common. They both demand compliance or else, right? Both are founded on lies. Any discerning believer can easily identify the dark forces Muhammad encountered when he received his quote-unquote revelations. Islam's false prophet led billions of people astray and murdered so many millions of others who refused to worship the moon god of Saudi Arabia. So like them, the woke, those neo-Marxist ideology, that's based squarely on falsehood, right to the core. Whether it's a rejection of God's existence or his goodness or his authority or his design, the hatred of God is manifest there. As slow as we've been to identify the rotten roots of wokeism, we may have been slower to see the spirit of Islam for what it really is, right? We're now in that surreal situation where even TikTok is persuading countless gullible millenniums that Osama bin Laden was simply misunderstood, right? His letter to America went viral. And, that transgender author, Gretchen Martin, they're calling the 9/11 attacks principled and defensible. And that's what they're being taught in school now. Our kids are being taught that attack on us was rightly so. That thinking boils all of the human experience down to a ridiculous an oversimplification of power dynamic. Good and evil are often judged on a warped idea that to be powerful is to be evil with no discernment with actual morality. Those who have the honor of knowing the most powerful being in the universe know that he's also the purest form of good. The woke mob wants the optics of seeming inclusive or diverse and tolerant in order to protest their virtue, while the Islamists they found this very powerful ally in the liberal elite. Their alliance is mutually beneficial, so as long as you don't look too closely, right? But for now, they just empower one another to become more diabolical in their moves against God or his people or his plans. So what's the result there? The hatred of Israel and the God of Israel. This erosion of the ability to perceive good and evil in Western society, along with that rapid growth of Islamic influence, has led to the eruption of anti-Semitism again, right? Excuse me. So if you think back to, that October 7 when it hit the fuse where the crowds were exhilarated and gleeful about that massacre, even calling for the gassing of Jews the next day before Israel had lifted a finger. If you look at 2023 and up till January 24, it shows this extreme surge in global anti-Semitic incidents, up 200%, over 200% since that massacre, right? Think about the World Zionist Organization, the Jewish Agency. Most of the agitators believes that they're signaling virtue by doing it, imagining that they're sticking up for the underdog. But it's just part of the fast-flowing river of guilt-ridden human beings bereft of any way of dealing with their sin. So they campaign for all they're worth, hoping to find that redemption. But we know nothing can wash away our sin, nothing but the blood of Jesus, right? You have to understand that these activists, listen, it's not about oil. It's not about climate change. It's about a cause that allows them to crusade for righteousness, right? And that's why the transfer over to the pro-Palestinian protesting is so effortless. Hating Israel is the new way of declaring your own righteousness or signaling your own virtue. Without that moral compass to identify the serious issues in Islam, the West is falling headlong into trouble, right? And this is exactly the sort of mixed up alliance of power that could lead to the rise of Antichrist. On the other hand, this mix is also presenting a gigantic opportunity. The fields are white. They're ripe, they're ready for harvest, with millions of people craving freedom and forgiveness, which can only come through Jesus, right? So many Muslims are finding their savior in this day, right? And those coming out from the deception or they're blinking in the light and they're able to see so much more clearly what's at stake. An army of brave disciples is rising up. They're ready to declare the truth that set them free, right? Even at the risk of their own life. And let's not forget this. So Daniel's dream of the statue and its feet of iron and clay is ultimately overlooked by that huge rock that fills the whole earth. Daniel 2:34. Let's go there. As you looked, a stone was cut out by no human hand, and it struck the image on its feet of iron and clay and broke them in pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold all together were broken in pieces and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away so that not a trace of them could be found. But the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. What is this mighty stone uncut by human hand? That's the Messiah. As you hear repeatedly throughout the scriptures, the Messiah comes to thresh with a fork in his hand, right? The wheat and the wheat will be separated, right? Jesus himself makes the link while speaking about himself in Matthew 21. It says, "Have you never read the scriptures? The stone which the builders rejected, this has become the chief cornerstone. This came from Adonai, and it is marvelous in our eyes." So there's a lot going on in the world, and man, we touched about a lot of hot topics there. But the iron and clay mixing, I mean, you can see this. I mean, people have asked me before, what do I think the one world religion will be? And this is what ties this all together. This meeting that's going on, they're talking about one world government. We're closer to that. What follows that? One world currency. What follows that? One world religion. People have asked me what I think it'll be. I honestly think it's going to be Islam, or a form of Islam, or a form of whatever makes us happy, but with very strict guidelines. So if you want to know more about that, let me know. But listen, we're coming to the time where we're running out of time, right? The things that are happening, Jesus said before he comes back, the gospel is going to be preached to all the world. And I mean, we are every hour getting closer and closer to that. And if you haven't, it's the other thing. I mean, people are going to blame climate change. And are you noticing what's going on around the world with these disasters? And maybe you're not. The things going on in China and the things, the flooding and the landslides and the earthquakes, you're probably not paying attention to it if it's not in your little circle. But we know that things are getting closer to the end here, so we're running out of time, and this is it. And like I said, you know before, get your piece of paper out and write down all those people that you know that are unsaved, and start getting them to church and start talking to them about God, and be the light in this dark world, because it is dark, and it's getting darker, and that time is going to run out shortly. And how will they explain when we all disappear in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye? Think of the disaster on Earth. Man, it's another topic for another day. The point is, we're running out of time, and what are you going to do with Jesus? Right? What are you going to do? And a lot of people are guilty. I'm guilty of it myself, and you get caught up in the worries of the world and the things that are going on in your life, and you got to take a step back and look at the big picture here, and start crossing names off that list of people you're bringing to God. Time is running out. Listen, Romans 10:5 says, listen, the word is near you, it's in your mouth and in your heart. And that's the message concerning the faith that we proclaim. It's so simple. Listen, if you declare with your mouth Jesus is Lord, and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you'll be saved. You'll be saved. It's with your heart that you believe and you're justified, and it's with your mouth that you profess your faith and are saved. And I was just doing, another thing on trying to please God, and it's one of the things I posted on the Tongue with Dr. Myke Facebook, and it ties faith all together, and without faith you can't please God, and it's all connected, and that's it. And this is what a lot of people don't get. It's I have to change my life, and I have to do this, and then I got to start to live this strict life. Listen, God's going to meet you exactly where you are, and what happens from then is between you and God. Right? But God's right there listening, and he's right there waiting. Everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Right? And I pray in this season that you're searching, and you're questioning, and you're looking for this man. Right? Every day is one day closer to the remainder of prophecy being fulfilled. And you're not promised another day. You're not promised another moment. Don't put this off. Don't say, I'll think about it later. Don't think like I did earlier, well, I can live my whole life, and on my deathbed when I'm 80 or 90, that's when I'll give my life over. You don't want to look and say, if I only would have listened or taken this more serious. Now's the time. Jesus is waiting for you. He came to earth. He was born so that he could die for you, right? And where's my victory in everything? Jesus has the victory on this on all of this already. Your anxiety, your depression, your everything got nailed to the cross with him. He already paid that price for you, and that's what people don't understand, that this is a gift that's freely given. You cannot earn your way into heaven, no matter what you do. It doesn't matter how good you are, the good things that you do, and I give money to the poor, and I did this, and it doesn't matter. The Bible says our righteousness is like filthy rags to the Lord, right? We can't earn our way in there. The only way that we can get to the Father is through Jesus, and Jesus bled and died and sacrificed himself so that you can make it to heaven. All you have to do is open that door. Man. And it's easy. Like I said, God, I know I'm a sinner. I can't do this alone. I believe that you are God. You sent your son Jesus to die in my place. He took my penalty. He rose again, and he's coming back. Come into my life. I accept you into my heart. Forgive my sins. Be the leader in my life. I turn everything over to you. Guide me, teach me, let me grow and learn more about you. That's a simple prayer. That's it. And then you get yourself in a church where you're fed. You get a Bible. If you need one, you tell me. And you read about who God is. And then you go somewhere where you're being taught. And that's it. Reach out to Psalm 346 Ministries. Reach out to Legionnaire. There's so many places you can reach out. It's simple, but it's an important decision. And you'll be prepared for wonderful things, ways that you may not even see coming, right? In Jesus' name, all victories. You're the winner. You're the conqueror. You have access to all power and victory in his name. But that's it. There's no name given to us that we may be saved. But that name, there's only one name, and that's Jesus. And man, I can't emphasize enough. Some people, you don't like making lists, and there's somebody in your family that doesn't know. You know that. We all know that. You have friends that aren't saved. Maybe you're scared. I was scared. Now I just invite people to church, and I don't care what they think of me. Oh, he's that crazy guy that tells me God loves me and tells me that I'm equipped to get through this life. And I don't have to do it alone. I'm that guy. So reach out to me. Thank you for everybody that's responded to me. And we wrapped up this faith, and we will do another one shortly. And sorry if you think this was a conspiracy episode, but I just want you to know what's going on around you. Because it's the attention to it is not being given. But there are everything that this Bible says is coming. They're prepping right now. They've been prepping for a while, and it's unfolding before our eyes. So be prepared. Remember, Jesus loves you, and he's waiting to hear from you. So until next time, thank you, and I'll see you then.